Hey, what's up? It's DJ Rees, and I'm here to bring you some of the wildest and most entertaining stories from the depths of Reddit. So sit back, relax, and get ready for a journey through the absurd, the unbelievable, and the just plain ridiculous. Let's dive in and have some fun. Lawyers of Reddit, at what point when working for a defendant did you realize my client is a monster? I'm not a lawyer, but I was a detention officer and bailiff for a small town at the time. We had a guy who was a member of the largest church's elders and an all-around great guy with money and a big house. He got brought up on attempted homicide charges against his wife. He wept and prayed and generally was the picture-perfect, wrongfully accused sort. He'd sniffle to me about requests for a Bible or religious tracts from his cell, such as "God bless you" and a tearful thanks. Half the town showed up to the courthouse for his bond hearing, which turned into a total circus where the 100 people crammed into a room with a 50-person maximum hissed and booed the prosecutor every time she tried to read the charges and evidence against him while raucously cheering the defense when he made counterpoints. There was zero decorum or order, and I had zero ability to hear what was being said, so what was I supposed to do? Shoot at them? The guy got released on own recognizance, meaning the judge allowed a person accused in a criminal case to go free pending trial without posting bail, to go back to work when regular bail would have been set at least $500,000. Well, I had access to his legal history as well as the evidence against him. He had a long history of escalating violence against multiple prior spouses in a few other states. He'd done jail time multiple times for it. Basically, he'd beat the living crap out of her so bad that the cops could photograph the blood and drag marks in the snow where he dragged her, unconscious, to the truck. She woke up and he, while holding a gun, captured with his prints and her blood all over it from pistol whipping half her teeth out, declared that he was going to shoot her and then unalive himself. She threw herself from the moving vehicle, ran to a farmhouse 400 yards away in her underwear and barefoot in -5-degree weather, and luckily they answered the door to let her in. She was hysterical as he drove circles around the house looking for her, and the police were called. In the 911 call, you can hear her screaming at the two old people to run and leave her so he would just get her and not kill them too. The cops arrested him as he was hammering on the door with the butt of the gun, screaming that he was going to get her sooner or later, and if she ran, she would just die tired. Long story short, he got off with a minor family member assault charge, misdemeanor, which all the naive baby boomers believe is a travesty and put blame on the woman. His defense is that while he was in my jail, she cleaned out his bank account and the entire thing was a setup to steal his money. She had no income and used the joint account to pay medical bills and flee the state. All the church people and assorted rubberneckers involved claimed she was always a loose woman and just set him up to steal from him. And maybe he did smack her around a bit, but only because her loose and unwomanly behavior pushed him over the edge. The ultimate worst part is, I cannot legally tell anyone the truth without being at a huge legal liability, and nobody would believe me anyways. I had to sit through a kangaroo court biting my tongue, while that filthy snake pleaded down to a misdemeanor, and half the town cheered about it like it was a soap opera. At one point, I looked at the judge, whom I know very well as a neighbor, and the look in his eyes was like, "This is so wrong, but I don't want a mob to form, so screw it." His defense, whom I overheard chatting, knew he was guilty as sin and is a dangerous sociopath, but knew that freeing him would ingratiate them with the town, and also his lawyer is running for commissioner for the upcoming election. I'm no longer in law enforcement, and I'm moving as soon as finances allow. Screw this hick county and the messed up people in it. The fact that half the town rallied behind him like he's some sort of hero just proves that common sense is not so common. I mean, I get it, everyone loves a good underdog story, but when the underdog is a violent sociopath, maybe we should reconsider our loyalties. What a terrible situation. This is a civil case, not criminal. This was the first case I went to court for completely solo, and it left a lasting impression on me. I was doing some pro bono work for a legal aid clinic very soon after I was licensed. You get to practice all different areas of law, so it's great for learning, and the clients get free legal help. And they gave me this very easy case to get some experience. It was a simple eviction. My clients have received notice to get out for non-payment of rent. I met with them and they're basically Honey Boo Boo's parents, except they were every negative people of Walmart stereotype you can think of. They were very entitled, aggressive, and depressingly young, but with a flock of children already. The wife says she's disabled so she can't work, and as part of my client intake, I ask what kind of disability she has in case it might be relevant or we could provide more assistance. She looks me straight in the eye and says, "I don't read good." Knowing that, I make sure to read out anything I ask them to sign and try to make sure they understand the process. The gist of the case was they were living in a trailer home on some guy's property, had stopped paying rent several months ago. I forget their reasons, but it was more the landlord is a jerk than anything else. And the landlord has left them a notice to get out and actually filed for eviction. I immediately noticed that the letter from the landlord is defective. He doesn't include some things he should have and had not waited the required time period to give them a chance to pay and stay before filing in court. So basically, this is going to be super easy to get dismissed, but they don't have any grounds to challenge an eviction. Place is uninhabitable, etc. So this is just a band-aid to give them more time to get rent together or find a new place. I explained this several times and stressed that they need to either move out or pay their rent back. Court day comes and it's in a rural county almost an hour away. We wait, our case gets called, and we go straight up to the bench to talk to the judge. This frail old man stands shakily holding some wrinkled loose papers and slowly shuffles to the bench. I start to feel sick. The second he gets up there and the judge asks him to speak, my clients start loudly arguing and shouting over him, and I have to remind them to shut up. The landlord explains that he's illiterate and had to have a neighbor write the notice for him, and adds that these tenants are horrible people and have been harassing him and his daughter. The judge asks our side, and my idiot clients both start shouting again. I finally get them to shut up and say, "Your Honor, the notice was defective. We motion to dismiss." And I hand him my motion. This poor judge's face lights up at an actual legal argument being presented, and he quickly skims my motion. He immediately rules in our favor, explains to the landlord that he will need to start the process over, give them new notice, wait 20 days, refile and repay the filing fee, then turns to my clients who have the biggest a-hole smirks on their faces and sternly tells them the same thing I had, that this doesn't do anything but delay their eviction. We go to leave and I feel god-awful watching the landlord dejectedly slump away as I walk back to my car. I was already thinking, F these people, I'm not helping them again, when I hear them hooting and jeering. I turn to look, and they have rolled down their truck windows and are shouting the most vile abuse at this old man as he fumbles to get into his vehicle, including nasty things about his daughter. They tear out of the parking lot cheering like their team won the Super Bowl, and on the long drive back, I realized that this career was not for me. Oh man, that's rough, and it's understandable why this case left a lasting impression on you. It's hard to work with clients who don't seem to understand the gravity of their situation and act so entitled. And to witness them verbally abuse the landlord like that, it's frustrating when justice doesn't feel like it's really served in cases like this. Even though I've made a throwaway account, I'm going to be a bit vague because I still take my ethical duties to former clients seriously, and I can't breach privilege or the NDA I signed. This is a story from a long time ago, during the summer after my first year of law school when I was briefly working at a well-known criminal defense firm. The client whose case I was working on was one of several defendants charged with conspiracy to commit murder. 3 individuals had committed the murders, and several others had either helped plan it, abducted the victims, came along to watch, or filmed it. In order to see whether our client was one of the individuals present at the scene, I had to watch multiple videos of the murders. I watched multiple people brutally killed in about the worst possible way you can imagine. They were chopped into pieces while they were alive and had their skulls stomped in. It wasn't some grainy security footage either. It was high-quality video taken by bystanders just a few feet away. The videos showed terrible things and another person screaming as their hands and arms were hacked off. I also had to listen to the audio to see if our client's voice could be heard. The screams will haunt me, and the laughter was worse. It has stuck with me for years and years, and I don't see it going away anytime soon. Thankfully, my internship at that firm ended a few weeks later at the end of the summer. I never looked up the sentence from the case and have no desire to. In our case, there was no presumption of innocence, so the individuals involved had all taken pleas in hopes that the prosecutors wouldn't seek the death penalty. The only thing that would change was whether our client would get the death penalty, if he was present, or life in prison, if we showed that he played a more minimal role. Working in criminal defense meant setting my judgment for people aside so that they could be afforded the rights guaranteed to them by the Constitution. I still did my job to the best of my ability, but I found myself lying awake at night for several weeks in a row, praying to every god that I knew that each of those cruel people involved would fry in the electric chair, and that someone would laugh at their screams too. After that internship, I never returned to criminal law. I now practice civil law where I help people recover for wrongs done to them. Wow, that's a heavy story. It takes a special kind of person to work in criminal defense, and it's clear that you gave it your all despite the emotional toll it took on you. It's good to hear that you found a different area of law that aligns better with your values. Take care of yourself and don't hesitate to get therapy, my man. I am a law student and honestly haven't had too much contact with messed up cases. However, before I made the decision to study law, I talked with every lawyer I knew about their job. My dad's cousin invited me to his firm, made me sign a confidentiality clause, and showed me a few files. He's a criminal defender, and without breaching my confidentiality agreement, here's what I can give away. This dude was known to have anger issues, and one day he came home drunk, not drunk enough to prevent conviction though, to his girlfriend and his child. It was the child of his ex-wife. Anyway, the child was in one room and he and his girlfriend were in another. He started beating her and torturing her. He also filmed it. And in the end, he beat her until she was deceased. I have not seen the video, but I have seen photos of her body, and it's not a sight I will ever forget. The guy was convicted of murder, but only the light version. In Germany, a murder of specific aggravating circumstances that gets you lifelong imprisonment has to fulfill certain requirements. For a murderer to be guilty of this crime, they have to kill out of pleasure, sexual gratification, out of greed, by stealth or cruelty, or by means that pose a danger to the public. Think of gas or bombs, or driving a car into a group of people, or in order to facilitate or finally to cover up another offense. In this case, cruelty was the only possible circumstance. However, after hearing expert testimonies, the judge only went for a normal murder because apparently the guy had beaten her with a blunt object and in her temples. The experts said that she likely didn't feel anything afterwards. Cruelty, however, must be experienced by the victim, and since she couldn't feel any more, he didn't cruelly murder her. However, the judge also said that he easily could have gone the other way, but that he felt he couldn't without reasonable doubt. He still said it was a very serious case, in which the sentence is life imprisonment as well, so in the end, the consequence for the client was the same. Still, it was so messed up, and I honestly can't imagine being in criminal law because of things like those. I have no problem defending people like him, and it's important to provide everyone with a lawyer and legal assistance. But honestly, I wouldn't want to see crap like that. Wow, that's a tough story, but you're right. It's still important to provide legal assistance to everyone, but it must be incredibly difficult to work on cases like this. It's a good thing that the person was convicted, but it's unfortunate that the aggravating circumstance wasn't applied. Man, Germany really needs to fix that. I'm a criminal defense lawyer, and I can name a few instances where I was just absolutely disgusted with my client. Caveat: these are mostly years ago when I was taking just any old case. I mostly practice white-collar and federal law now. Story 1. I won a DUI case because the government messed up on something right before the trial was to begin. My client gives me a hug and completely reeks of alcohol, and I knew he had driven to court. I took his keys and called his mother. Story 2. I had a client who was accused of sexually assaulting a 12-year-old. He was in his mid-40s at the time, and I had to shut him down real quick when he tried to tell me how the 12-year-old was coming on to him. Story 3. I represented a woman for a grand theft charge. I left her in my office to get some things copied before she left, and after she left, I realized my sunglasses and car keys were stolen. I tracked her down in the lobby and told her I was not going to represent her anymore, and I would call the police if she didn't empty her pockets in front of me and give me my things back. Story 4. I had a client who was released after 25 years in prison for murder, and then on the same day he got out, he beat up his prospective new landlord, and he ended up getting another 10 years. He was unrepentant and laughed about how he hit the guy so hard that his eyeball popped out. I thought, this guy deserves to be in prison. I took the case to trial anyway and, shocker, lost, and he got 10 years, which was the max. Story 5. I had a client who pretended to be a doctor so he could sell steroids. According to the report, he had numerous clients who were made to believe that his steroids would cure their cancer. They paid him hundreds of thousands of dollars, and some of them died. I just thought that was pure evil. Wow, those are some pretty messed up stories. As a criminal defense lawyer, I'm sure you've seen it all. But it's good to know that you stood up to your clients when they were in the wrong. It takes a lot of guts to do that, especially in those situations. It's great to see that some lawyers have a clear line that they will not cross. Thanks for watching till the end, and don't forget to subscribe and like for more of these ridiculous stories. Love you all, and stay safe out there in that crazy world. Much love. Peace.